going to show you a few extra bits and then we're going to start putting them together. So we've got the wired piece that we made earlier. So this piece, I'm going to see it so well in my head, but it sits there, and then you see you've got the round piece there for the hat to sit onto. So your hat would sit there. I could make a smaller one if I had a little baby hat. Also you could make a bigger one, so you can just change the measurements, okay? So just rewind it for the measurements and then you can adjust them. But I always start on about 50 inches, then we bend it at 10 inches, then we bend it at 15, so you want 15 for the whole headband, then it's 7.5, then it's 2, then it's 8 for the circle, 2 again, and then you want 2.5 for the leftover bit. You can adjust it, maybe you've got a really big head, you know, and you can adjust it and things like that, and you can cut off any excess as well. I always start with a little bit bigger. Right, so that's going to go on the head, but we will need to put a comb on that as well. But first of all, maybe you'll want to paint that if you've got it in a white, and then you can paint it to match the client's hair colour. So that's a really good idea. Also, you can cover that in a ribbon. So you can cover the whole thing if you want to in a ribbon, which would be really, really nice. Or this bit here is going to go in the hair anyway, so you don't have to do that bit, but just to finish it off nicely, you can do something if you want to make it extra special. But this bit as well can be covered in ribbon if you're going to show it, because this bit is going to be sewing on to the back of the head. So like this one here, this bit is going onto the head here, so you can either cover that in a ribbon to make it look really nice when it goes in here, and then put your label in there, or you can actually cover it in a felt or in another bit of fabric or some petersham, or just like a ribbon that could go around and just hide this bit. You could cut a circular piece of felt out and put that in there, or ribbon. So I'm going to show you a quick way of just covering that in ribbon, and then that one is going to go on here, but I don't really need the ribbon, because what I'm going to do is so that, yeah, so it's going in the head like that, so that's going on there because then it can fit into the head nicely. So it's actually going to go on that way. Then we're going to then put a back on this to cover this messy bit and cover all of this as well. But I'll just show you a ribbon quickly just to start you off in case you do want to cover it in a ribbon, because say you were putting it in this here, this one, and you didn't want to cover the back up at all, then you could just make this pretty with ribbon. So we want to do that. Then we want to sew the comb on. So the comb will always go underneath here. Now this will give you a bit more stability. So when that's on, then the comb pushes forward and it just keeps it on. It just helps to keep it on a bit better. So we'll show you how to do that. Then I've been playing around with the sort of dripped effect that I made with it on the bag. Now the back here, I've still got the effect of the bag, so that's quite black. So then you can decide what you want to do. And this here is silver, so this is all painted silver. And then this is going to go on our front piece. So I have to do this first. So I've got this on the back piece, and then I need this to go on the front piece, and then I join the two together. So this, and I want the grain bias to be going all the way down. So I'm thinking this will then kind of stick up, so it'll go on the head like that. And just leave a bit for the eye, just manoeuvre it. So it'll be a little bit crazy. What I've done is stuck that onto some acetate to make it less floppy, a little bit more rigid, and then it can go on there, a couple of stitches just to keep it down. Also you could show some of the base, something like this. We could show some of the base if you want to, or you could just use a small amount, or you could cut into it and start making other patterns with it. We could fold it a little bit. Don't want to ruin my shape, but just to show you, you can start folding and doing other things with it. Also, I've cut around that quite roughly, so I was just waiting for it to dry, and then I'll just cut around it a little bit better, a little bit more even to make that all lovely. All right, and be careful with the glue, because you don't want the glue to be seeping out. So I've just used the Yoo-hoo glue in certain places just to keep that on and stick it down. And I can see, you know, when the Yoo-hoo glue just has a little bit of a tail and you need to cut that off, I can just see a couple of those bits, so I will just take those off. Also be careful of fingerprints. If you get fingerprints all over it, it's easy to get fingerprints in the gaps and then it looks quite messy. So before you sell it or before you finish it, you want to clean that off as well. You could clean it off now and then just be really careful with it, or you can do that later. And just make sure it doesn't look grubby with lots of fingerprints. So that is going to sew on there. And then I'll show you how to put the back on, and then the whole thing can go on the head. So you can have a completely different design to me, but I just wanted to be a bit futuristic with that one. Then we've got this one, which is a lot more girly and traditional and pretty. So that is going to have that going in there. And this one going on there, and then that going in there, and then that can, a bit wonky, that can then fit on the head in the proper way. So I'm going to assemble it all together. Right, first bits first. Okay, first bits first, we are going to put the comb on this one. I'm going to show you how to put the ribbon on this one. Right, so we've got this piece, this headband piece, and we're going to put on there some ribbon. So I have a little bit of navy, which we could have put on. This is quite thin, so it's a nice thin ribbon. You don't want to use Petersham because it can be quite thick, and then it'll make it really bulky. So you want something quite thin. I've also got a little thin bit of white if we want to use that. I've got some cream, and I do have some lace, which could also be interesting because I'm thinking of covering this bit, and then this bit is going to be covered in fabric anyway. So what I could do is cover the whole thing in a big bit of lace. Let's just see how that starts off. So it is going to make it look a bit messy lace. It's not going to be as perfect as a ribbon, but it still just covers it up more than just having it just as wire. So that's an option, but this is quite a nice lace, so I don't really want to cover it all up because, you know, it's got some lovely flowers on there, which we're not going to see if we do all of that, but that's an option. So I think I will use this one to go all the way around there. But just to show you quickly, you could use ribbon as well, just to go around here if you're going to see this and you're not going to cover it up at the end of the day. So to do that, you could also come down here as well if you wanted to come down this stem. But just to show you the first bit, I tend to start slightly away from the edge there, and I'll just fold that over. And then I'll just wrap round once, and then I'll go back over my end. Now I must do it at an angle. So if I go, this makes it slightly bulky just on the end there, but not too much. But I'm just covering up that end. You could also do a little stitch just to keep that end down. And just right, I've covered it up completely, and as long as I pull that really tight, then that hides my end. And I could always do a little stitch on top at the end of the day if needed. I don't tend to use glue. Yeah, just light little stitches, and then I can just keep wrapping this around the other side, always at an angle. Bit here, it's not going to be long enough to go all the way around. I should use a longer bit, just to get the gist of it. Just keeping my thumb on it every time. Make sure you've got clean fingers, because if you're fiddling with it a lot, the sweat from your fingers can actually come off and dirty it a bit. So I'm just wrapping that around. It's at an angle. I'm just slightly going over the last little bit of thread of ribbon. You know, just going over that a little bit, trying to keep it as even as possible. Try not to let it bag out. Sometimes it bags and then you know, you end up getting lumps. So just practice doing that all the way around until you come back. And when I come back, I will fold the rough end down, and I would just do a little stitch just to keep that down. So I don't want to see this very, very rough end here. I'll fold that over when I get to there, and then just do a little stitch to keep it in place. So you can keep doing that if you're going to put it on something like this and you don't want to cover the whole thing up at the end of the day. You just want a nice bit of ribbon. I would then go down here with a bit of ribbon as well. You don't necessarily need this because it's going in the hair, but if you want to make that all lovely and a bit smarter than what it is right now, you could do ribbon over the whole thing. So these do take a little bit of time, but it is nice. So I'm not going to have that because I'm going to cover it all up. What I'm going to do is do this section. And I'll do it in this darker one. My favourite scissors. These are vintage. This is so amazing. I have to be really careful with these. We don't want to blunt them at all on any cinema. So these little ends here I'm going to leave because you see it's got tiny little loop in it, and that then you could attach elastic at the end of the day and have that going underneath if you you know, need extra support. So I can start doing the ribbon just slightly up from the end there. So I'm just going to go a tiny bit further up than what I need, just a centimetre, and folding it over on an angle. And then I'm going to trap that down with my next wrap. So I've trapped it down now, and I can go down a little way. And then I can crisscross the other way. So I was going down, and then I can crisscross and come back up over that again. Just that's where you need quite thin ribbon, because otherwise it'll get bulky. Maneuver it, you're having it at an angle, but just maneuver it so it's neat. And then my end is trapped inside here. I could always do a little stitch just to sort of secure it. Remember where it is, it's just there. So just secure that at the end of the day, a little bit more, and then carry on wrapping. Chosen dark here because my hair's dark, and most people who I have as clients have dark hair, but if your client had blonde hair, then you would obviously need to change this. Some people have red hair, you know, very blonde, dark blonde. If it's dark blonde, black is normally all right, but if it's sort of midway, you know, people have all sorts of hair colour, even pink. You could then make the headband pink. Right. Looking good so far. I'm just going to keep on wrapping, and then you come back and see. So I'm going to keep on wrapping up here and all the way down to here, and then I might do a little bit along here as well. Actually, this is going to be covered up, but not this. So I could come up to here and then go down to here and then do this separately, or come up to here and do this and then go down again. It would just make that area a little bit thicker. So we can come along, up and down. Right, so we have wrapped this all the way around. So not this bit, but the rest of it. So that's all nice. I've chosen a navy blue. It's just a lovely blue. You know, I could use black, but just to be different. So now I've got this bit left, so I finished wrapping. So I'm just going to cut that close to the end. And then fold this under. So I've got a little bit sticking out. I don't want this to fray or to see this little tiny bit that's sticking out. I want to fold that under. So I'm just going to fold it under, place it down, and then do a little stitch. And just there on the edge of that fold, and then one on the other side. So it's as neat and as strong as possible because you don't want that unravelling. It's hard to see for even me to see. It's a tiny little stitch in two places. Cut off any excess. Okay, done. Then we're going to put the comb in. So this is going to sit on your head with this coming forward. So I would normally use a black comb with this, or a navy comb. It depends on their hair colour, obviously. I'm going to put in the silver comb just so you can see the stitches a bit more. Find the middle of it. And this is a good one. This is a metal comb. And these little bits here just loop over. So it's quite nice, and it's bendable. I use the plastic ones a lot as well, but I worry that sometimes they might snap with the client, so at least these ones are never going to snap. So these are better ones. I want to find the center. I can do it by eye, but just to make sure. Okay, there's the center. Then we put that into the center of this. Now it's going to go like that, because then when it's on the head, it's then pushing down. So you can put it on the head and then push it into the hair, and this comes down to your forehead. So we try again and do it as neat as possible. I'm going to have a bit of a slideways slant stitch going on here. Just going to catch it to the ribbon just to knot it and make sure it won't come undone at the end, at the edge here. got a knot there which we cut off later. Got quite a long bit of thread here. We just make sure that is secure, it's not going to come off, and then I can work my way around, wrapping through the teeth. I go around about 3 times. And then we diagonally go across to the other set of teeth and do that 3 or 4 times. If you've got double thread, then you can just do it twice. I'm keeping my needle on for later. Okay, and then another one. 1, 2, 3. And then move along to the 4th tooth. 1, 2. Try and keep your threads over this same place, so not all over the place. 3, and then move along. So I'm going to see a diagonal stitch on this side and a straight one on this other side. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 4 for luck. Then move along again. 1, 2, 3. Move along. 1. That one's gone a bit funny. Start again. 1. 3. and do the rest on the other side. There, so we've finished all this off now, and then we can just knot it off just to finish. Get that in place. Comb in. Now, this then needs to sew on for our hat there, and then we can put a nice back on that at the end of the day. So it's going to go on the head. This is going to fit inside the hat. So you might be wondering why I'm doing messy side that side. Well, when that's in that way, when that's in like that, when that's in like that, then I've got a nice lining going on in here, but I've also got a nice bit here, just in case the client ever sort of looks inside, and then it doesn't look messy. And then I can sew that onto there, and then we can put a nice back on this bit. So for this I would use a creamier thread or a pinky thread, so I'm not going to see it on that side, but also this doesn't matter so much because we're covering it up. So what do we think is going to be the best thread? We could do a white thread, we could do a pinky thread. So I think actually the white thread is going to disappear more than the pinky thread. Okay, so then mess goes on this side, clean this side. It's quite a nice little, tiny little headpiece on its own. So my first stitch, I'm just going to go over it just to make sure it's all secure. Okay, that's on. Now I can jump along about maybe an inch or just over a centimetre on the inside. So I'm going through on one side of the wire and coming back up through on the other side. Making your stitch really small. So I'm just keep going over and over and over. So I'm coming back up the other side of the wire, move along about 1 inch and then down again on the inside of the wire and then back up on the outside. Move along, go down on the inside of the wire, pull it tight, back up on the outside. Have a look, can't see my stitches. Okay, good. Inside of wire and then back out, tiny stitch, outside, just working your way around really. Just when I'm getting to this join here, I'm just going to do a few more stitches over that to make sure that's not going to lift up in the future and it's all secure. Okay, nice little piece on its own. Right, so we need a lining to go in this one and then we can fit this into here. Also I need to put the piece on here and then we can sew those two together as well. So next bit I'm just going to sew this on, sew these two together, and then we'll put a lining in this one and sew those two together.